I want you to close your eyes for a second. Imagine the terrain. It is December 1937. You are deep, and I mean deep, in the Kentucky mountains. You are 3 miles from anything that even looks like a paved road, let alone a town, and it is freezing.
We're not talking about a little bit chilly.
No, this isn't a light jacket kind of cold. This is a bone-deep cold, a silence so heavy and dense it feels like it's actually pressing against your eardrums.
Yeah?
There is no birdsong, no wind in the trees, just the sound of a mule's hooves crunching through this crust of snow.
Yeah.
You are a woman, you are completely alone, and your saddlebags are loaded down with library books.
It sounds almost picturesque in a rugged kind of way, doesn't it? Sort of beautiful and stark.
It does, until the twig snaps.
And that's it. That is the moment the entire atmosphere shifts from, winter wonderland to something much, much darker.
To survival horror, because suddenly the path is blocked. And it's not a bear, it's not a wolf. It's a man named Clem McCullough. He's drunk, he has a rifle, his finger is twitching on the trigger, and he has zero respect for who you are or what you're doing there.
He just sees a woman alone, a target.
Exactly. He blocks your path, he threatens you, he tells you to get off the mule, and in that split second you realize the absolute reality of this job you've taken on. You are miles from any help, and the civilized world might as well be on another planet.
And this is the opening sequence, the prologue of The Giver of Stars by Jojo Moyes. And what strikes me every time I read this confrontation isn't just the threat of violence, although that is very, very real and terrifying.
Oh, it's palpable.
It is. But it's the weapon the woman uses to defend herself. She doesn't have a knife. She doesn't have a pistol. When he grabs her and she knows she has to act or, maybe die, she reaches into that saddlebag.
And slams a heavy library book right into his face.
Right in the face. A book.
Which is just the perfect metaphor for everything we're about to talk about today. It is literally a blow for literacy.
It is. And it sets the stakes immediately. We aren't just reading some cozy story about librarians drinking tea and stamping cards. We are looking at the WPA Packhorse Library Initiative in Depression-era Appalachia.
A real historical program.
A very real program. But more than just the history, we're dissecting the social dynamics of a town called Baileyville, Kentucky. We are looking at this friction between a rigid patriarchal order and the chaotic, liberating power of the natural world.
So for our deep dive today, we have a massive amount of ground to cover. We need to map out the geography of this town because in this story, geography is destiny. It dictates everything.
It really does.
We need to break down the marriage trap that our main protagonist, Alice, falls into. We need to analyze the absolute force of nature that is Marjorie O'Hare and get into the gritty, unromantic, day-to-day reality of riding a horse up a freezing mountain to deliver Robinson Crusoe to a family that's maybe never even held a book before.
So where do we start?
Yeah.
With the town.
Let's start with that geography, because Baileyville isn't just a setting. Like you said, it's a character. The layout of the town dictates the class system, the economy, and the psychology of every single person we meet.
It does. The text describes the town as being nestled between these two ridges, with the main roads forming a distinct V shape.
And that V shape seems to act like a funnel, doesn't it? A funnel for the social hierarchy.
Exactly. If you look at the source text, the wealthy, respectable families, the lawyers, the doctors, the mine owners, they live on the flatlands down near the creek.
Makes sense. It's easier to build there.
Right. From a developmental standpoint, flatland is easier to build on, easier to farm, easier to control. But it also represents accessibility and visibility. If you live on the creek, you are part of the system. You are seen.
But then you look up.
Then you look up, and you have the hollers, these small shadowed valleys, and then the high ridges above them. And that is where you find the subsistence farmers, the really poor families, and of course the moonshiners.
The people who need to stay hidden. The people who quite literally look down on the town from above, but are looked down upon socially.
It's a perfect physical representation of the class structure. But by 1937, that clean division is getting messy. You have Hoffman Mining coming in, dominating the local economy and building these company towns.
Which brings in outsiders, creates tension.
A lot of tension. But the psychological divide is still there. You are either town or you are mountain. And that distinction matters because this library project is trying to bridge that gap, and neither side is particularly happy about it.
And the climate itself plays a huge role in that divide. We opened with the snow, the brutal cold of December. But if we jump back to that town meeting in September where this all kicks off, the atmosphere is the complete opposite.
It's stiflingly hot.
Unseasonably warm is how the text puts it. The meeting hall smells of lye soap, stale perfume, and sweat. It's claustrophobic.
And that claustrophobia is key. It's not just physical. It perfectly mirrors the social pressure in that room. This meeting is where the conflict really begins. You have Mrs. Brady, a local woman, pitching the library initiative.
And for context, this is the Works Progress Administration, the WPA. This is Eleanor Roosevelt's baby, essentially.
It is. The goal was twofold: boost literacy in isolated communities and employ women during the Depression. A noble idea. But the men in that room, they are not buying it. Not at all.
The resistance is visceral. It's not just a polite, we don't have the budget. It's why on earth are women doing this?
Right. You have these characters, Mr. Simmons and Mr. Porteous, who are just openly mocking the whole idea. They ask if the women are going to be driving lumber trucks next. It's that classic slippery slope panic.
If we let them deliver books on horseback.
What's next? Total anarchy. And then they bring in the theological objection, which I find fascinating. He argued that families should only be reading the Bible. That's the only book they need.
And that fiction, or any books from up north, will spread crazy notions.
Crazy notions. And we all know what that's code for, right?
Independent thought, questioning the status quo, dissatisfaction with your lot in life.
Precisely. They view a woman riding alone into the mountains not as heroic, but as ungodly. It disrupts the natural domestic order. A woman belongs in the kitchen or the parlor, not on a trail.
And yet the job itself requires exactly that disruption. The whole packhorse concept isn't some casual afternoon ride.
Not even close. The source text says these women are riding 100-mile routes every single week.
100 miles! On mules, no less.
On mules and horses, navigating terrain that cars can't possibly touch. Washed-out creek beds, steep, muddy trails. They're delivering everything from Mark Twain and Robinson Crusoe to scrapbooks of recipes and comic books for the kids.
It's physically brutal work.
Incredibly brutal. Which just makes the skepticism from the men sitting in that hot, comfortable meeting hall feel even more patronizing. They're criticizing this incredible labor from a position of total comfort and ignorance.
Okay, so let's talk about the woman who walks right into this buzzsaw. Alice Van Cleve. She is our ultimate fish out of water.
Alice is the classic outsider. She's British, from Surrey. She marries Bennett Van Cleve, this handsome American, thinking she is escaping a stifling, judgmental life in England.
She has this whole vision of America, right?
Oh, yeah. It's all skyscrapers, cocktails, New York energy. She thinks she's marrying into the Great Gatsby. She's imagining this life of excitement and freedom.
And instead, she lands in rural Baileyville, Kentucky. It's a bait and switch of epic proportions.
It is the marriage trap. She trades one cage for another, and the new one might actually be worse. In England, she was judged for being too loud, too unladylike. She thought America would be the land of the free.
But Baileyville is arguably more restrictive than her home in Surrey ever was.
And she fails to fit in almost immediately. It's painful to read.
There's that one sequence with the green potato. It plays like a tragic comedy.
Oh, the cottage pie incident. It's so revealing. Alice tries to cook cottage pie to, impress the housekeeper, Annie, and maybe get a break from the constant greasy Southern food she's being served.
Little taste of home.
Exactly. But she has no clue how to operate a wood stove.
It's a complete disaster.
A total disaster. The grease spatters her dress, she burns herself, and she doesn't cook the potatoes correctly, so they are literally green. And then Bennett comes home to find his wife dirty in her house clothes, serving what is basically poisonous food.
I think green potatoes are actually toxic, aren't they? I remember hearing that somewhere.
Mildly, yes. You won't drop dead instantly, but you'll get very sick. But the toxicity here is social more than anything. It proves to Bennett and his father that Alice is incompetent. She can't quilt. She can't make biscuits. She thinks they're cookies. She fails every single metric of being a good Kentucky wife.
So in their eyes, she's useless.
Practically useless.
Mm-hmm.
And she is living in a house that feels like a mausoleum. The Van Cleve home is filled with the late Mrs. Van Cleve's porcelain dolls. Just shelves and shelves of them, staring.
The doll metaphor is just inescapable, isn't it?
It's laid on thick, but for a reason. Bennett actually calls Alice his China doll when they first meet. He likes her because she is refined, she has a British accent, she looks good on his arm. But dolls don't have opinions, they don't have needs, they don't have agency, they just sit on the shelf and look pretty.
And that is what he wants from her. He wants an ornament, not a partner.
And then you have the father-in-law, Mr. Van Cleve. He is the true architect of her misery.
He's a tyrant.
A tyrant of the domestic sphere. He controls everything. He controls the food, only Southern dishes, lots of grease, lots of salt. He controls the noise, no jazz on the radio, only old Bill Monroe. He even controls the air quality.
The oil rags, that detail is so specific and awful.
He burns oil-soaked rags on the porch every evening to keep mosquitoes away, so Alice is forced to sit in this cloud of choking black smoke while he rocks in his chair.
It's suffocating. It sounds like a form of psychological warfare.
It is, literally and metaphorically.
Yeah.
And he uses religion as a bludgeon. God hates waste, so Alice has to sit in the dark, mending trousers instead of reading a book or listening to music. It's all about control, total control.
And Bennett, the husband, is completely subservient to him.
Completely.
Bennett is such an interesting character because he isn't essentially evil in the active, aggressive way his father is. He's just incredibly weak.
That's the word. He's described as looking like a movie star, but there's absolutely nothing behind the facade. And the marriage is, well, it's not a marriage.
It's non-existent.
It's sexless. The source text gives us that detail of the bolster, the long pillow he puts between them in bed every single night.
And what's his excuse for that?
He claims it's to keep things chaste while his father is sleeping in the next room, but months go by and nothing ever changes. He gaslights her about it. He makes her feel like she's crazy or improper for wanting intimacy.
So Alice is lonely, bored, and feels like she's literally disappearing.
She's fading away, which is exactly why she volunteers for the library. It's not just about civic duty. It's a jailbreak.
It's her only way out.
It is. And look at how she gets permission to do it. It's brilliant. She uses Mr. Van Cleve's own weapon against him. She uses his religion.
Right. She argues that if people learn to read,
they can read the Bible.
Yeah.
She frames the whole Packhorse Library project as a religious mission, an act of charity. It's the first time we see Alice really using her wits to manipulate the system she's trapped in. She realizes she can't fight him with logic or reason, so she fights him with his own dogma.
And her partner in this crime is the one person in town Mr. Van Cleve despises more than anyone.
Marjorie O'Hare.
Enter Marjorie.
Marjorie's the catalyst. If Alice is the fragile China doll, Marjorie is raw iron. She walks into that town meeting wearing men's breeches, boots unpolished, smoking a cigarette. She is completely, totally uninterested in the town's opinion of her.
She is the living embodiment of everything Baileyville fears in a woman.
Absolutely. But to understand Marjorie, you really have to look at the O'Hare family history. It is dark.
It's brutal.
It is. Her father, Frank O'Hare, was a notorious moonshiner and a violent, abusive man. The text mentions that Marjorie has a bullet wound in her arm from when she was 11 years old.
11. Shot by her own father.
Just think about that for a second. And there's another detail, a patch of missing hair on her scalp, where he used to drag her up the stairs by her hair.
That detail. It just gets under your skin. It anchors the level of trauma she grew up with. It's so visceral.
And it explains so much about her. When her father finally died, she didn't cry. The text says she told the pastor she was glad he was dead. For Marjorie, his death was her liberation.
And she's turned that trauma into this fierce, non-negotiable independence.
She has, which is why her relationship with Finn Gustafson is so complex and interesting.
Sven seems like the perfect guy for her. He's a miner, he's strong, he clearly adores her, but she keeps saying no to marriage.
She says it plainly, I won't marry you, Sven. And it's not because she doesn't love him. The source text makes it very clear that they have a passionate, physical relationship, which, by the way, is a stark contrast to Alice's cold, sexless marriage.
A deliberate contrast.
Very deliberate. But Marjorie understands the law in 1937. Marriage turns a woman into her husband's property. She has seen what happened to her own mother, who was trapped. She refuses to sign away her autonomy. She would rather live in sin and be free than be a respectable wife and be owned by someone ever again.
So you have Alice, who is desperate to escape a marriage, and Marjorie, who is refusing to enter one. And then they recruit Isabel Brady. Izzy.
Izzy provides a crucial perspective on disability and stigma in this era. She's a polio survivor. She wears a heavy, clanking metal leg brace.
And she's the daughter of the woman who is organizing the library, Mrs. Brody.
Right, but she hates the idea. Her mother is forcing her to do it. She feels defeated before she even starts because she calls herself a cripple. She has completely internalized the town's view of her.
The scene where she first tries to get on the horse is just painful to read. She can't do it. She's struggling. She's about to cry. She's completely humiliated in front of everyone.
It's awful. But then Marjorie steps in. And what's so important is that Marjorie doesn't offer pity. She offers mechanics.
That's a great way to put it.
She looks at the problem practically. She doesn't say, "Oh, you poor dear, let me help you." She asks, "Do you need to brace if you're sitting on a horse?" She tells her to take it off. She adjusts the stirrups. She approaches it like an engineering problem.
And suddenly, Izzy is mounted. And Marjorie makes that crucial point. On a horse, nobody knows you have a bad leg.
The horse is the great equalizer. The horse doesn't care about the polio. It just cares if you can ride.
And the real emotional payoff for Izzy comes during the school visit, doesn't it?
It does. She is terrified. She is absolutely bracing herself for the kids to mock her, to point and stare at her leg. That's what she's dealt with her whole life.
But they don't.
They don't even notice her leg. They're completely fascinated by the horse and by the books in the saddlebags. And she realizes that her value isn't defined by her disability. She smiles, a real smile, because, as she says, nobody was laughing at me. The library gives her a purpose that transcends her physical limitations.
So the team is coming together. We also have Beth Pinker, the other librarian.
Right, a tomboyish girl from a huge family. She adds to this picture of a diverse group of women, all drawn to this work for their own reasons.
And we have to mention Frederick Gisler, the horse breeder. He's the crucial male ally in this story.
He is so important because he shows that not all the men in this world are like Van Cleves or the drunks in the meeting hall. He's the one who provides the horses and mules for the project. He respects the women. He believes in the mission.
And there's a definite spark between him and Alice.
There is. He calls her the English bride. But you can tell he sees her. He sees the person, not the doll. He's gentle. He's kind, which is a quality Alice hasn't seen in a man since she arrived in Kentucky.
So the team is assembled. Alice, Marjorie, Izzy, Beth. Now, let's get into the actual work. Because reading the description of the routes, this is not a gentle trot through a meadow.
Not even remotely. Far from it. Section 5 of our source material goes into the physical toll in detail. This is an endurance sport.
It really is.
We're talking sunburn that blisters the skin, insect bites that swell up and get infected, bruised knees from banging against the saddle or low-hanging tree branches.
Marjorie has to teach Alice how to ride loose-limbed, right? So she doesn't get battered by the terrain.
Yeah, she tells her you can't fight the mountain. You have to move with it. You have to yield, which is a metaphor for her whole journey, really.
I loved that little detail about the hominy hole, where Marjorie points out these natural rock formations that indigenous people used to use to grind corn.
It grounds the story so well. It reminds us that this land has a deep, deep history of survival long before these coal mines ever showed up. It also shows Marjorie's connection to the land. She knows its history. She knows the plants. She knows the trails. She belongs there in a way Alice doesn't yet.
But the most critical lesson Marjorie teaches Alice is what I call the Africa analogy.
Yes. This is maybe the most important piece of advice she gives her. Alice asks if Marjorie ever gets scared being out there all alone. And Marjorie compares the mountains to a watering hole in Africa.
It's such a brilliant comparison.
She says when you see animals at a watering hole, a lion, a gazelle, whatever, they're constantly reading each other's energy. If the lion is fed and calm and just resting, the gazelle is safe to drink. If the lion is prowling, twitching its tail, you get out of there. Fast.
And she applies this to the men they encounter on the trail.
Exactly. It's about reading body language. It's about instinct.
It's street smarts, or I guess trail smarts.
Trail smarts, yeah. If a miner's walking home, exhausted, just wants his dinner, he's safe. He's the fed lion. If he's drunk and looking for trouble, he's the prowling lion. And you avoid him. Alice, with her sheltered Surrey upbringing, has zero instinct for this.
She just smiles politely at everyone.
Right. And Marjorie has to teach her that a polite smile can be an invitation to the wrong kind of person in this environment. It's a harsh lesson, but a necessary one.
And they have to test this theory almost immediately with Jim Horner. They ride up to this rickety cabin, and he comes out with a gun.
The shotgun. He's immediately hostile. He says, "I don't want no charity."
This is the core conflict of the library work, isn't it? How do you help people who are too proud or too suspicious to accept help?
These are proud mountain people. They don't want handouts from the government or from town folks they don't trust. So Marjorie's strategy here is brilliant. She uses soft power.
She doesn't argue with him.
She doesn't argue. She doesn't preach about the benefits of education. She just hands a picture book to one of the little kids standing there.
She bypasses the father completely. She goes right to the children.
And she says, "I'll just leave these here for a week, no charge. If you don't like them, just leave them on the fence post for me." She removes the transaction. She removes the element of charity, the shame. She uses the children's natural curiosity as the wedge.
Because once the kid sees the pictures, the dad isn't going to be the monster who takes it away from them.
Exactly. It works, but barely.
Hmm.
And the poverty they see on these routes is just jarring. The source text describes cabins papered with old newspapers just to keep the draft out, naked children running around in the dirt.
It really drives home why this WPA program was so necessary. This isn't just about reading for fun. It's about connecting these incredibly isolated people to the wider world.
And that brings us to the central contrast in Section 6, the two worlds. You have the raw, dangerous, but ultimately liberating reality of the mountain, and then you have the stifling, civilized artifice of the Van Cleve house.
There's that one picnic scene that just perfectly captures the complete failure of Alice's marriage. Bennett takes her out and she's really trying to have a moment with him. She wants to connect.
But he just can't. He's incapable of it.
He keeps saying he wants to have a nice time.
That phrase, a nice time, is doing so much heavy lifting in that scene. It means he wants the surface to be pleasant. He wants a scene from a postcard. He refuses to engage with anything deeper. He doesn't want to talk about feelings or their future or the library.
And then the bird incident. That felt so significant. Alice sees a red cardinal, and she's excited about it because Marjorie has been teaching her the names of the birds. She points it out to Bennett.
And he's just completely uninterested, dismissive even.
He's not much for reading up on birds.
And that symbolizes the whole widening gap between them. Alice is waking up to the world around her. She's learning the names of the flowers, the birds. She is becoming part of the landscape. Bennett is asleep. He's disconnected from the very world she's falling in love with.
He sees the mountains as just a backdrop for his coal mining business or his town life.
But she's starting to see them as a living, breathing thing, a place of refuge.
And he continues to gaslight her about their intimacy issues. He dismisses her concerns, says it's a guy thing when he's distant. He just shuts her down at every turn.
So you contrast that miserable picnic with the library. Not the building, but the experience of being a librarian. The text describes the mountains as a sanctuary for Alice. She feels more herself out in the wild than she ever does in civilization.
In Van Cleve House, she is constantly being watched. She's being judged by the porcelain dolls, by her father-in-law, by the housekeeper, Annie.
But out there in the mountains, under the cathedral canopies of the trees, as the book says, she is unobserved.
Unobserved. That is such a powerful concept for a woman in 1937. To not be looked at, to not be measured and evaluated constantly.
It is the very definition of freedom. When she is on that horse, she isn't a wife, she isn't a disappointment, she isn't a foreigner, she is just a human being in nature. And that is intoxicating for her.
Okay, so looking at the big picture themes here that are set up in these early chapters, first and foremost, the power of literacy. But it's not just some abstract education is good idea. Books become a form of currency.
They absolutely are. They are used to barter for trust with people like Jim Horner. And there is that great little detail about the book The Good Earth. One of the copies they have has the last few pages missing.
And the sharecropper who read it was furious.
He was livid. He said it was a complete waste of his time to read a whole book and not get the ending.
Which is funny, but it's also kind of tragic.
It is,
Yeah.
because it shows how precious a complete story is to these people. For someone whose life is just endless, repetitive, back-breaking labor, a story is an escape. It's a window to another world. To have the ending snatched away is a genuine cruelty.
It also validates the whole project. It proves that these people do want to read. They aren't stupid or ignorant, as the men in town suggest. They are just resource poor.
Then there's the theme of female solidarity. This is the real heart of the book, I think.
It has to be.
Absolutely. You see it in how Marjorie, the town pariah, immediately stands up for Alice against the town gossips. You see it in how the whole group rallies around Izzy and helps her overcome her shame.
It's a stark contrast to the other women in the town.
A huge contrast. The women of the town, the church cliques, the sour-faced women as the book calls them, they tear each other down to maintain the social hierarchy. They police each other's behavior constantly. The librarians, on the other hand, build each other up.
Because they have to. Their survival depends on it.
It's the difference between a social club and a platoon.
That's a perfect way to put it.
When you are facing down a drunk with a gun, or a flash flood, or a lame horse miles from home, it doesn't matter who has the nicest table setting. It matters who has your back.
And finally, we have nature as a character. The landscape is personified throughout these chapters. It is beautiful, the goldenrod, the milkweed, but it's also deadly.
Snakes with spade heads, sudden floods, freezing temperatures. Marjorie navigates this all by instinct and memory. Alice has to learn it. I love the detail that at first she has to tie red twine to the trees to find her way back.
Like a fairy tale.
It is. But that learning curve is her character arc. She is learning to navigate the world on her own terms, literally and figuratively. The red twine is her training wheels. Eventually, she won't need it.
So let's wrap this up. We have unpacked the intro, the characters, the setting, and the emerging themes. What is the real mission we have uncovered here in this deep dive?
I think the mission of this deep dive into The Giver of Stars is to understand that the WPA library wasn't just about delivering books. It was a collision course. You have a group of defiant, independent women crashing headfirst into a rigid, patriarchal, and deeply suspicious society.
They are bringing knowledge to the dark places. And that's both literal dark places like the isolated hollers and metaphorical dark places like the minds of people who have been told their whole lives that they don't matter.
It is a story about the disruption of order. And usually when you disrupt the established order, chaos follows. That is what we are seeing in these early chapters. The cracks are forming in the foundation of Baileyville society.
It really makes you reflect on the sheer bravery involved. I mean, would you ride a mule into gunpoint territory just to deliver a comic book to a child?
It puts our modern conveniences into such sharp perspective. And historically, this was a massive moment. This was a time where women stepped out of the kitchen and into the wild. They earned their own money. The text says $28 a month.
Which was a significant amount of money then.
It was. And that financial independence is terrifying to men like Mr. Van Cleve. A woman with her own money and her own horse doesn't need to listen to him anymore. She has options.
So here is our final thought for you to take away. We have seen this powerful tension between Marjorie's fierce refusal to marry and Alice's suffocating, soul-crushing marriage.
And that contrast raises a really provocative question. Based on these early chapters, does the source suggest that true freedom for a woman in 1937 was fundamentally incompatible with traditional domestic life? Was it an either-or situation?
That is the big one, isn't it? If you were in Alice's boots, muddy, bruised, smelling of horse, would you choose the safety of the silent house filled with porcelain dolls and hot food? Or would you choose the danger of the mountain trail, where you might get shot, but you can finally truly breathe?
Safety or selfhood? That is the choice.
Yeah.
And I think we know which one these women are choosing.
Something to think about. Thanks for listening to this deep dive.
Thanks. Next time.